Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second day of World Class Community Week US. It's very nice to see you all today, especially to my fellow panelists who will get a stunning introduction in just a moment. My name is Lauren Mote. I'm the Diageo Reserve and World Class Global Cocktailian and also the co-creator of World Class Community Week. The US represents the 7th country that we have done this amazing program around the world. And it started out of a need for community during very challenging times. We started with Northern Europe and the Nordics at the beginning of April, carried on to Italy, then to Canada and Great Britain, Australia, Russia last week, and now this week with you in the United States. It's a wonderful honor to be here, and I hope that everybody on this call tuning in, and also our panelists and our wider world-class community, understands how important it is now more than ever that our community stays strong and keeps connected, and we continue to learn and build each other up and helping to push those opportunities forward for everybody in our wider industry and community. And with that said, it's wonderful to see you all, and I would love to introduce you to our first session of day number 2, World Class Community Week. This is Heart of Gold, Citrus in Cocktails. We have an incredible panel, so firstly I'm going to introduce you to today's session. The seminar will feature Nick Wallace and Lauren Paylor, and it's about citrus and spirits, as well as how different acids and citrus affect the overall flavor profiles in your drinks. We're hearing about the famous Tiny 10 still from the one and only Fraser, the still that gives Tanqueray number 10 its distinctive citrus heart. More on that and the secrets behind that shortly. After the presentation, Tanqueray's master distiller, Terry, again, he's taking up most of my introduction here because he's very important. And the world-class panel will be on hand to answer all the questions you wanted to know about citrus and perhaps were too afraid to ask. And over to you, Nick, to start us off Heart of Gold with Tanqueray 10.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that heartwarming intro. And yeah, you're right. I do actually spend a lot of time in the garage and make knives for our bartenders. But it's a lot of fun. It's a new little hobby I picked up during this lovely past few months we've had off. So that being said, I want to jump right into this and say thank you to everybody for joining us for today's session. We're going to jump right into Heart of Gold. So we're very happy to introduce the Heart of Gold and Citrus and Cocktail Studio. Celebrating and exploring what makes the heart, what's the heart of making Tanqueray number 10 the benchmark gin it is today. Bartenders are focusing more and more not only on the macro ingredients that go into their drinks, but the micro elements that make up the recipes for their spirits and liqueurs. Today's session aims to showcase and shine a light on why gin is still one of the most relevant, delicious, and resonating spirit categories in the world of cocktails, and why Tanqueray number 10 stands at the forefront of this ever-growing movement.
All right, so let's get started with a little history lesson talking about the founder himself, Charles Tanqueray. Joanne McKercher, Diageo's senior archivist, has been one of the very few lucky enough to read through Charles Tanqueray recipe books, which date back to 1832. These books contain over 300 recipes that Charles worked on for over 30 years. Today, we continue Charles' legacy. The recipe books still very much inspire how we innovate on Tanqueray, and they keep us true to the brand, ensuring that all we do is authentic to the spirit. But his legacy also encourages us to experiment and push boundaries, which is successfully done with Tanqueray number 10. What's really awesome about this spirit, and we will talk about this during the next slide, are the ingredients that we utilize to make the spirit itself. Perfect.
Thank you, Lauren. So now we're going to get into a little bit more detail. So Tanqueray number 10 is a very special product. It took 300 attempts and 2 years to finally perfect the product. The team took a very long time to master the recipe for Tanqueray number 10. Think about creating a signature cocktail for the opening of a new bar or restaurant, and how many tries it takes to get that perfect marriage of flavor, theme, creativity, and speed all in one place. The secret to a great gin happens to be fantastically similar to what makes so many great cocktails: whole citrus. Tanqueray number 10 relies not only on whole grapefruits, limes, and oranges, if you got that right on that poll question, to distill a great tasting gin, but the particular location in which they are sourced from. The botanicals you use in your gin are important, but equally vital is the location these botanicals are grown and cultivated. It is the citrus heart that is the essence of what makes Tanqueray number 10 the spirit that it is today, and it makes it such a very unique and special product. This is Terry Fraser. We're going to hear a little bit from him very shortly, but just to quote him, Tanqueray number 10 took over 2 years to perfect. Many in the industry think that vapor infusion, maceration, and distillation of flavors is easy, but how difficult is it to balance flavors in a botanical blend? It requires a high level of attention to detail and distillation knowledge, as well as a great trained nose to achieve the perfect cut. With balance, you need to ensure consistency. Good old Terry. So collaboration is key, as suppliers will have to begin to look at sourcing from other regions or across the world. Just like creating new cocktails, collaboration makes all the difference in the final outcome. Whether you're working with your team or you're working with a group of people from around the world like we are today, collaboration makes all the difference.
All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about the ingredients that we utilize to make this lovely product. So from looking at this table, it is evident how much work and time experimenting is spent to get the final product. The dedicated team behind Tanqueray number 10 take great pride in where all of the supplies comes from. This baseline allows us a starting point that we can use to begin experimenting with cocktails. So as important as these lovely ingredients are, where they're sourced from is plays a huge role and a huge part in the process of making Tanqueray number 10.
Citrus is intrinsically associated with acid, one of the most pivotal counterpoints to many other forms of flavor in drinks. Citrus was a rare and luxurious commodity for so long, and fresh citrus was often preserved or dried for its use in cocktails or gin production. It's no wonder that Charles Tanqueray was fascinated by it, and citrus in many forms appeared in his recipes over the years, just as Lauren said earlier, from 1832.
All right, now citrus in drinks. So citric acid is found naturally in citrus fruits, especially in lemons and limes. It's what gives them their tart, sour taste. Ascorbic acid is commonly found in the citrus fruits such as oranges, but also tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, and many other things. So when we discuss citrus in drinks, citric acid is the primary acid we think of and assists in bringing balance in cocktails, especially with sweeter ingredients. Ascorbic acid, while also aiding in the balancing of cocktails, has another nifty trick. We can, talk about how it prevents oxidation, and we see this when we utilize it. When we juice cocktails, or we're preserving the color and preventing it from browning, essentially. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mark Moriarty, the global gastronomer for Diageo. So the quote he has here: every acid has a different level, all based on the pH scale. So it's really important that we're finding a balance. Balance is so important. And if we transfer this and these lessons into the bar, we can find parallels on cocktails. Think of the gimlet, for example. It's slightly tart, a little sour, and everyone likes it a little differently, right? But we need to find the right balance by introducing a little bit of sugar, otherwise the palate gets flabby. And now we have our pH scale here. So acidity is measured in a pH scale, with 1 being highly acidic, 7 more neutral, and 14 highly alkaline. The relative pH of common citrus fruits are displayed on this graph. So we're going to look at something like a lemon, for instance, and then something like a grapefruit. Very, very clear that a lemon is a little bit more acidic. I don't know how many of you like orange juice in cocktails, but depending on the cocktail that you're making, you can make it a little bit more acidic, a little bit less tart. But the idea here is that when we are using orange juice in cocktails, something that is a little bit more alkaline, we can create lovely balance in it by, incorporating maybe a little bit of vinegar or a little bit of lemon juice. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Lauren. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Jack Sody. So Jack Sody is the Tanqueray Senior Brand Ambassador and does an excellent job. Jack recommends a few different types of methods for using citrus. So the first one is balance. We balance sugars with acid, not only to soften the punch, but to allow other flavors to shine through. We brighten base spirits with citrus, such as with using a lemon peel on a 50-50 martini or an orange peel in an old-fashioned. Helps brighten those softer flavors and bring out more subtle aromas from the base spirit. Curing. We cure food and cocktail ingredients with acids. Punch, where milk is intentionally curdled with acid to create a new reaction within the mixture. We can also do it with food items such as a ceviche, for example. All right, so fruit and spice. Tanqueray number 10 provides itself on being the perfect balance of fruit and spice. The attention to detail is vital in creating a spirit that is very consistent between all of these areas.
All right, beautiful. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the distillation of Tanqueray number 10. So we're going to look at the left side of our screen here. So firstly, we use our 500-liter still, Tiny 10. This is where we produce the citrus heart with fresh Mexican limes, South African grapefruits, and Florida oranges. Once we achieve the cut, The volume produced forms part of the final Tanqueray number 10 product recipe. To produce Tanqueray number 10, we use our 250-year-old still, Old Tom, and that's going to be here on the right side. We charge the still with the purest of grain-neutral spirit before reducing with demineralized water. Then the botanicals are added: juniper, coriander, angelica root, licorice, chamomile flowers, fresh whole fruit, and to finish off, we add the citrus tart. The distillation has a very high heads and tails run, allowing us to achieve the perfect product cut. So it's something that's really important to remember again, is that we're using fresh whole fruit in distilling Tanqueray number 10, which makes it very, very different than other styles of gin.
Now, to conclude, I'm going to touch on a little bit of sustainability when it comes to using citrus. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of using all parts of the lemons, the limes, and grapefruits and oranges, but there's different ways you can do that. You can use the peels to do zesting over the top of cocktails. You can do the juice for obvious reasons. And you can use all parts of it for everything. And we're going to use a little bit of that today in our conclusion and in our final cocktail. So we're going to talk a little bit about Tiny Tom's Collins. Excuse me. So Tiny Tom's Collins is going to be a fun little cocktail. It's going to be a bit of a combination of all the elements we've learned today. Hopefully you can all see me here. Let's make sure I can get that down pat. So one of the methods we're going to use today is combining a few ingredients, right? So we're going to talk about Tanqueray number 10. We're going to do about 1.5 ounces of Tanqueray 10 in our shaker tin, like so. We're going to do about 3/4 ounce of fresh squeezed OJ. Gotta love that fresh juice. Now, to balance the OJ in the cocktail, just like we discussed a little while ago, we are going to actually add in about 1/4 ounce of lemon juice to help bring up that pH level back to where it needs to be to make for a more balanced cocktail. Now, to throw in a little bit of sugar, we're going to do a touch of the 3-citrus oleosaccharum, which is going to be a blend of grapefruit, lime, and orange. And if you were paying attention, that's actually the base for Tanqueray number 10 Citrus Heart. All right, so we have all that in there. We're going to top this off with just a few dashes of gin barrel-aged orange bitters. Give this guy a quick shake. And we are going to pour it right into our tall Collins glass here. The wonderful thing about this gin is you can smell all of the citrus and all of the spices and all of the ingredients that they use in its production. It's absolutely incredible to work with. Pardon me for using my fingers. So we're just going to put ice. Now we're going to top this off with just a touch of club soda, about 3 to 4 ounces. Make this a beautiful Collins, just like so. To finish, throw 1 grapefruit slice, add just a little bit of garden fresh thyme. Voila. Tiny Tom's Collins.
I think we're on to Terry. Terry! I wasn't sure if you were really there or if it was just a picture.
Yes.
You were so silent.
Yeah, do you see me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I was getting worried for a second there. I can see everybody else apart from myself, so yeah, that's good. Yeah, so it's night time here for me in Scotland. And if you could just send one of those cocktails to myself as well, Nick, that would be fantastic. They really look good. So I suppose for me, I suppose this is my first time doing anything for the States. So I've been to a couple of borough classes with Lauren, and Berlin was my first one in 2018, I think, with Lauren. That was my first one, taking over the role as Master Distiller. So I'm very, very proud of that role, having kind of been in the white spirits part of the business, including Gordon's and Tanqueray, as Lauren was saying earlier on there, for the last 10 years. But taking it back to coming on 37 years this month, actually, was when I started my career. And my career was with Tanqueray, believe it or not. So to be kind of rolling on 26 years later, to be actually managing the whole, in fact, the only site in the whole world that produces Tanqueray is such an honour for me. Been involved in world class as well. I think, like say, watching Nick making that cocktail, I could never do that. So I always get jealous of the bartenders with the cocktails they make, but I think there's a great relationship there between the distillers and the bartenders, which it makes my role, which I'm really excited about, makes it even more of a pleasure to kind of meet the bartenders. So there's always a lot of kind of big kind of connection here between us, which is fantastic. So Tanqueray 10 for me is a fantastic brand. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when Tanqueray 10 was launched in 2000. I do speak to the master distiller at that time to see if there's any kind of stories about what happened at the time, but unfortunately not too much. But I don't know if you can see the two bottles beside me here on the screen. So we do have Tanqueray 10 here, which you always spot very well. But we've also got one which I'm very proud of, is the Tanqueray Citrus Heart Edition. Grapefruit and rosemary. So
Wait,
I would say that.
Hold everything, Terry. Oh my gosh. Well, hold on. You've jumped right into talking about this like brand new, incredible bottle, which is, I will say, for anybody that is a fan of Tanqueray 10, which I imagine every single person tuning in right now is, that bottle is a beauty. It's a total. Okay, tell us more about that special one.
It's probably one of the Q&A questions, but I get that excited about it. And the reason I get overly excited about it is because in the 10 years I've been managing the distillery, I've been involved in the relaunch of Malacca, but I wasn't the master distiller at that time. The Florida Sevilla coming along, and Bloomsbury, etc. So probably been involved in 4 or 5 different gins in the last 10 years. But this one, the grapefruit and rosemary, when I was asked by DJ Hageman, who probably was a director for Tanqueray, my heart sunk when he said, "Look, we want to do something with Tanqueray 10." Knowing that it's a fantastic brand, and I love Tanqueray 10, it's my favourite gin, and to actually, I suppose, a bit of a challenge and a bit of an opportunity to do something with Tanqueray 10 that hadn't changed for 20 years. To do something different and focus on the kind of the citrus heart was a wee bit of kind of terrifying moment, but I am so proud of that. In fact, I actually got feedback from so I don't know if you're aware of the Gin Guild or not, but the Gin Guild is a very prestigious kind of company that I'm part of, and one of the kind of key people in that organisation actually gave me a bit of feedback just the other day. Just 3 days ago, I got an email, and I was so chuffed. And he said his comments were it's the best gin that he's tried in the last 2 years. He goes across the world tasting different gins. So that was a bit of kudos for myself, and really proud of it. So it's probably doing something with the citrus heart. And the focus was grapefruit. So we've got 3 fruits in the citrus heart. So the focus was grapefruit, doing something different with that, and also throwing a bit of a curveball in, but actually introducing a herb as well. And that herb was obviously rosemary. So the actual drink itself, we produced it, and we try to do as many trials in labs. And I always say to people in an innovation team that work in a lab, what they produce in a lab is never what you'll get when you actually bring it into a still and sort of try to produce it on a still, for example, Tiny 10 and Old Tom. And to this day, every time we've had a new innovation, that has always been the case. So the recipe you get in a lab is never the same as what you get when you actually use this pot still. So a bit of kind of tweaking from and what I was really pleased with, I was involved right from the very outset. So right from the concept through to the actual trials on Tiny 10. That's where we do our trial distillations on it, is Tiny 10 a little still, to actually putting it right through onto Old Tom. So it's got a fantastic balance. It is slightly less alcohol than T10. So T10 is 47.3, as we'll know, but grapefruit and rosemary is actually 45.3. You may ask the question, why did you go from 47.3 down to 45.3? And one simple reason was, when I was doing the distillations, there was that much flavour when I was getting to the end, near at the kind of cut point. There was so much flavour there. I thought, no, I need to let this go on. It was such beautiful flavour, such interesting twists that was come along with the rosemary and the grapefruit as well. I felt that actually it needed the credit to go on that little bit further, and thankfully it was all signed off by the brands team and accepted that was the right thing to do. So It's see the grapefruit. It's what we did is we still kept the South African white grapefruit, but we introduced a Spanish grapefruit, pink grapefruit. So it does have a balance of 50% pink and 50% white grapefruit, and then thrown in the rosemary as well. It just gives it that wee bit. What I found kind of interesting, I was at the kind of sign-off stage, so I took the kind of the trial samples along, and DJ Hegman was there, and Pedro was there as well, and just to see them tasting these trial liquids was very very heartwarming when you hear comments like, "Oh, this is so Moorish," and I'm searching for I'm continually searching for something new. So and we're getting all these different kind of characters coming through with the different balance of grapefruit and the rosemary coming through as well. So I could talk all day about this. So I'm not going to spoil the moment for anybody.
I'm gonna steer you a little bit because everyone is very excited, but we talked about so many things, and you have the sweetest accent as well. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. So let's start at the very beginning. So 1830, we have the incredible legacy of Charles Tanqueray begins, and we start somewhere around those lines in London Dry, well, after Bloomsbury. But so can you maybe walk us through perhaps the London Dry Tanqueray, because that is a question that has come as well. I guess the difference in that, and I guess the intention also to move into Tanqueray number 10 and the citrus heart. And we wanted to clarify as well that the rosemary and grapefruit is part of a citrus heart lineup, right? So, so I guess that's the specific question: is what is the difference between Tanqueray London Dry and Tanqueray 10 gin, first and foremost, so for everybody that's tuning in.
Right, I'll rewind. So Tanqueray London Dry, it does go back to 1830, 1832, and I have to say, hand on heart, I have actually went through Charles Tanqueray's recipe books, and I can confirm conclusively that it's still the original recipe, that we actually we still bottle that and produce that drink to. Tanqueray London Dry only has 4 botanicals, which are juniper, coriander, angelica root, and licorice. And what I love about the connection with all the different botanicals, I get the chance every year to meet the suppliers. We only have 4 or 5 key suppliers, believe it or not, supplying the whole of the botanicals for Tanqueray and Gordon's as well. And they're fantastic people to work with. The businesses themselves go back to, there's one in Germany, a gentleman by the name of Alexander Monreal. So Gotthard Monreal is the name of the company. And he actually talks about, I think he's the eighth generation, and he actually talks about the family history being actually connected and actually supplying to Charles Tanqueray direct back in the 1800s. I always find it quite exciting to hear all these little stories that's always been passed down the generations. But they are so proud to be associated brands, and they're great companies to work for, to work with rather, and they supply the best quality of botanicals. We're very probably hard on them, to be honest. We do only accept, and probably heard this as many times and seen it on the internet as well, we do only actually accept we reject 9 out of 10 botanicals, as in like juniper. And that's not because these 9 out of 10 are bad in any way. It's all about it's quality, but it's also having that consistency and character. And that's what Tanqueray is all about. Tanqueray is all about having that consistent character there all the time. And when you're doing a batch process, that's very difficult to get that consistent characteristic there. But what we do differently, and quality is at the very front of my mind at all times. That's what I drive with the distillers as well. It's all about quality, it's all about care, it's all about attention to detail. It's a massive brand, and we need to all be proud of that and keep protecting that legacy. It's a fantastic brand. So our QA process is second to none. All botanicals are actually assessed 4 times before they're actually end up at any of in our kind of pot stills. So it's really about just having that care and that quality focus all the way through, just to make sure you've got that consistency. We're dealing with stills that are 12,000 litre in size, so it's very much a kind of a batch process, and to be producing the volumes we do of X amount of millions of cases a year of Tanqueray through two kind of 12,000 litre pot stills is a big ask, but we have delivered, and that's one of our focuses every day. Is first, it's always about risk, but it's always then quality, having that quality of product at the end of the day, and that consistency that's there as well. So that's our kind of, I mentioned about the kind of botanicals. So juniper in the main comes from Tuscany. That's our favourite region. I had the opportunity to go there once, and that was an experience. We do get from other countries as well. And Tuscany's not going to provide all the juniper that requires, so we do source from other areas as well. And coriander, it tends to be, we go for a real lemon character. And what you'll find with other distillers is that they introduce this lemon character into their gins through lemon peels. So we don't use lemon peels because we have all this upfront focus and that high rejection rate. We are looking for a real lemon character from coriander, and that's why we don't need to introduce any lemon peel. A lot of suppliers think, oh, we've got some lemon peel on offer, would you like to buy some lemon peel? We don't use lemon peel, none at all, because we get that lemon character from the coriander itself. And Angelica, very important. A lot of people actually don't understand really the full importance of Angelica. Angelica for me does two things, and it's actually matured in the root. It's a root we use, and it's actually matured in the field in the ground for 2 years, and it provides a bit of a warmth, chocolatey kind of note. But first and foremost, it does a key thing. Actually, during that distillation process, the botanicals are all boiling up, it actually starts to bind together the juniper and the coriander. So just to combine all these citrus and kind of spicy kind of notes into that distillation. And then we introduce licorice as well, not a very high volume, because we don't have any sugar at all in Tanqueray London Dry. And that slight sweetness comes from the licorice, which is 100 times sweeter than sugar, but obviously better for your teeth as well. So that's all I can say about London Dry, Lauren. Tanqueray 10, probably Tanqueray 10 is well, it's not probably, it is. It's at a different level. It's very much a two-stage distillation. We have the citrus heart. Now, if I think of anybody, I don't know of another distiller that has probably kind of had the courage. Now, we're probably encouraged to produce Tanqueray 10 just through Charles Tanqueray being a perfectionist. His recipe books has some like over 300 recipes, so he's very, very adventurous, very clever man. So we took that inspiration from that to bring along Tanqueray number 10. Now, say we are, to my knowledge, this day, we're the only distiller that actually distills with fresh fruit. Now, it's very difficult to distill with fresh fruit, and the reason I say that is because if you can imagine taking, say for example, 2 oranges. Now, you don't know how juicy these oranges are inside. They could look on surface, they look the same size, but you'll get a different character from them. You get different levels of juiciness and acid coming from those fruits during the distillation. So it is very difficult, and that's why Tiny 10, when we're producing the little 500 still Tiny 10 that Lauren was talking about earlier, it's all about the nose. So we're out there every half an hour, every hour during that distillation, and it's all about being trained to know what characters you're looking for during that distillation to actually create this perfect citrus heart, which only forms part of the final Tanqueray 10 recipe, which is then completed in Old Tom. Introducing chamomile flowers was another kind of thing. I suppose like the rosemary with the grapefruit and rosemary, a bit of a kind of twist, but it provides that kind of floral note. The chamomile flowers are so lovely. come from France, and main from France. We do get some from Poland as well, but in the main, kind of on the border between kind of France and Poland, and lovely flowers. Anybody that's been to the distillery, when you actually, I've had some flowers just sitting on a display. They may have been sitting there for maybe a year, and as soon as you lift this flower, you might think, oh, there's not a lot of smell to it. But as soon as you break that bud, the chamomile comes flooding out of that. The power of a little flower is so amazing, and that's what gives T10 that different in character compared to some other gins, and just gives that a bit smooth and delicate, kind of silky kind of mouthfeel about it. So that's Tanqueray 10. I don't know if that's covered everything off for you there, Lauren.
Listen, all of us are just enamored just listening. I think when you go into so much care and consideration in the way even botanicals are chosen and what regions they're coming from, and it's just so fascinating. And we could listen to you speak about gin and botanicals all day. But I had a specific question as well on the topic of Tanqueray 10. If you could explain a bit of the challenge that you and your predecessors were actually faced with in putting together that citrus heart, because we say citrus heart and it rolls off the tongue so nicely to just say citrus heart, but it's I imagine much more challenging than just talking about the whole citrus fruit.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't here at that time. I can certainly talk about the challenges we had with creating the grapefruit and rosemary, but again, we took the kind of decision to go into uncharted territory with the fruits. It was interesting, and I probably, because I wasn't here at that time, I've probably tried to understand why did they choose those three fruits. So why did they choose lemon? Why did they choose lime, Mexican limes? Why did they choose South African white grapefruit? And why did they choose Florida oranges? And I'm still doing a bit of kind of research on that, but certainly, Nick was talking about kind of acid levels there. If you actually look at these three fruits, they probably do sit at different pH levels. So if you think you've got your most acidic one will be your lime, then you're going into your grapefruit, so it's probably kind of then about 1.5 times that level of kind of the kind of pH level, and then down to your orange as well. Now, a wee interesting fact, and it's not something I share openly, but it's the first time I've done any work with the US, so I'll happily do that. But there is only one orange. There is one orange in citrus, and the citrus heart of that we produce in Tiny 10. So it just shows you the power of one orange during that distillation. I was doing some distillations just a few weeks ago there, and I've had this. It just come to mind. I thought I'm just going to just do a bit more thorough kind of nosing analysis of the kind of the citrus heart, and I was so surprised how much the orange came through on that, considering that was the least amount of citrus fruit that was in that distillation. Orange really came through, and then you start to get the balance of the grapefruit and the lime coming through as well. But I was really, I know it must have been about every 20 minutes during that distillation, and you can see it changing, but the very first one that come through was the orange, and I thought, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, I'd say probably the lime I was actually expecting more than any of them. So that was really interesting, and well, probably a reason why I actually got into managing the kind of gin distillery. I actually went away in my career at the whisky side for 26 years, so I did cover everything off from blending, maturation, coopering, etc. The kind of lot over a kind of a lengthy period, and that was where I kind of picked up during my blending days. Was that I had a good nose. I loved to get out there in the blending hall, and I used to nose hundreds of casks a day, and that's where it kind of became apparent at a very young age that I had quite a kind of sensitive nose for picking up kind of smells. So, and what's interesting when I do, I was actually speaking to someone in the lab just a few days ago, and when I'm actually kind of trying to study like a new botanical, I try and relate it to things in life that I've experienced in life. And I can remember when I was just a young boy. I'd play football, or you call it soccer in the States. I'd be playing football and quite close to the distillery. I would only be 11, 12, 13-year-old, and I would always smell the grain cooking from the grain distillery, and it was always I had in mind it was always like a corned beef kind of note. That was reminded of what was the school days, and the character we actually looked for from juniper, and what I relate it to is during the distillation of juniper is actually linseed oil. So I could always remember a joiner repairing a window at my grand's house, and he was putting the putty in this window, and that's what I could smell. And so when I'm actually nosing, assessing juniper, and a good juniper is one that smells like linseed oil. So just a very interesting fact for you. So.
Amazing. And actually, it sets us up perfectly for our next question, which I'm going to fire it over to LP, to Lauren, because you talk about nostalgia and flavor profiles and how it connects us to, to a different time and place. And Lauren being also a world-class winner, I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite way to use Tanqueray 10 in a cocktail? And was there maybe a moment during a competition or when that cocktail really created a sense of nostalgia and perhaps all of the mechanics came together for you?
Yeah. So when I'm making cocktails, it's interesting. I think that we can often associate flavors with memories, nostalgia, right? So what I like to do is, depending on the challenge and the task at hand, is to really think of a moment in time in childhood, whether it's my mom making me lemonade or like apple pie or whatever it is, and stick with that memory moment. So we'll take lemonade for instance. I think Tanqueray 10 is beautiful in a Tom Collins classic cocktail, or even a sour. Let's start with that. So you take your sour style, ounce and a half, 3/4 through a quarter, and you slowly but surely take things out and put things in, right? So you take your classic style sour. What if I don't want to use an entire 0.75 ounces of lemon juice? All right, well then maybe I'll incorporate a little bit of orange juice and citric acid. Well, what does that taste like? And then maybe I'll incorporate a little bit of vinegar and take out some of that lemon juice. What does that taste like? And then maybe I'll take that, simple syrup and make it a cinnamon simple syrup, whatever it may be. And then, maybe it's taking that classic sour, adding something fizzy, whether it's soda water or kombucha or champagne, and then we have a French 75. So, I think it's taking those memories that we have, that nostalgia we have, obviously complementing the spirit at hand, so Tanqueray 10, citrus, acidity, and then seeing, what we can plug in and take out, and comparing it along the way and seeing how vastly different it is from what we originally had.
Cool. And over to Nick. I'm not sure if you know this or not. Maybe we chatted about it in a different life, but the slide that has the pH levels of different ways to find acidity in other ingredients is one of my favorite slides. I love not the automatic pour of lemon and lime juice, but of something else. And my question for you is, what are some of the other unique ways that you've been able to incorporate acid into cocktails that you learned that might be a little bit different from the standard?
Gotcha. So one of my favorite things to do, especially recently, is combining powdered acids. A lot of us have had experimentation with powdered acids in some way, shape, or form, and usually it's just by using one of them. But I found that if you combine them, you get some great texture differences. You get some great flavor components, whether you're using malic or lactic, and even throwing a little citric in there to get some brighter notes. Powdered acids are amazing, and just like LP said, with using vinegars. Bartenders have been making shrubs for ages, and it's still one of my favorite things to use in a cocktail. I think it's just so well balanced, and it's an easy ingredient to throw into a drink and make for a wide range of flavor combinations.
And Lauren, we talked about this earlier about vinegars and about pantries and about using what you have at home. And I know you're very passionate about the new way of making drinks at home. And I think you have something to add here as well, don't you?
Yes, I do. So going back to powdered acids just for a second, and I'm so happy that Nick talked about this. It's really, really important that you are measuring your powdered acids, whether that is by weight, which I highly recommend that you do it with a scale, but also ensuring that you understand the difference between what a powdered acid is in its powdered form and what it is in a solution, and how you're using that in cocktails. And the reason really is because it can completely ruin your drink, and we want to make sure that that we're being very intentional with the way we're using these things in our cocktails. But yeah, so at home, when I am making cocktails, specifically now with having so much time at home, there's orange marmalade, there's lemon curd. Katie Renshaw made an amazing sorbet cocktail the other day. It was awesome. So I challenge you all to just look in your pantries and see things that you wouldn't typically use and put them in cocktails. Basically, going back to what I said before, there's a little bit of acid in orange marmalade, but not much. So take that orange marmalade, add a little bit of lemon juice, add a little bit of citric acid, add a little bit of vinegar, and see how that changes your drinks.
Cool. And you mentioned earlier about kombucha as well. And maybe there's an important message here of tasting ingredients on their own before assuming that you can just pop a cap off a bottle and throw it in the drink and automatically it's going to work for you. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't use orange marmalade with rum, but that depends on the way the rum is. So, I probably wouldn't use lemon curd with, another spirit. But I think it's really important to do the spirit justice. Looking at Tanqueray number 10 specifically, all of that citrus gives you really opportunity to incorporate a vast amount of flavors. Think about what you eat, right? And the things that we use that have citrus in them, whether it's the zest, whether it's the peel, just the oils, whether it's the juice. So there's so many parts of citrus, and I think depending on what it is that you want to highlight, there's a really great opportunity to incorporate it.
Nick, anything to add there? Maybe some resources where people can learn more about powdered acids and maybe some of these other alternatives?
Absolutely. I mean, the internet is a vast array of information on the topic. It's not something easy to learn, that's for sure. It actually takes a little bit of practice to get all your balancing, your measuring right, especially whenever you're working with powders and turning them into liquid form. It's very important, just like LP said, to remember to properly balance your ratios of powders to liquid, because if you don't, you get a drastically different combination than what you're originally hoping for. There are some great resources online. There's some great books out there. Liquid Intelligence from Dave Arnold. You can talk about him. He's got an amazing book where he talks about all of this in detail, with some great detail. And there's a lot of great webinars and seminars you can watch online.
Excellent. And
like today.
Yeah, just like today. Terry, I've a question for you because can you tell me, was Glasgow your first global finals that you attended?
No, I was in Berlin. It was Berlin, then Glasgow.
Oh no, we were together in Berlin. That's right. We did that, we did that session together. So let me ask you, I guess when we did the session at the global finals in Berlin, it was focused on no homemade ingredients and bringing to life the citrus heart of Tanqueray 10 with, I think, 5 ingredients or less. Do you recall, I guess maybe in Berlin and even this year in Glasgow that just passed, was there sort of a moment where you tasted, a Tanqueray gin drink from somebody around the world and you thought, wow, that is such an exceptional example. It's something I would love to be able to make myself or just continue to have it on a daily basis. Any thoughts that you recall from those times?
It's like you're at world class. We're working effectively, so I didn't get much chance to partake in having a few drinks. But I was doing a session recently with Jack Sotty. He was mentioned earlier on there, and he makes an absolute fantastic gimlet. I love his gimlet, so I would say that's probably all the Tanqueray 10s that I've tried. Obviously, the gimlet is my favourite. Also, I love a martini as well, but a gimlet I do love.
I love that, and to Nick and LP this question again, because I think we're coming back to feeling like we love classics and allowing the spirit to really shine through. And if you love a gimlet and a martini, is there a specific ratio of a martini that you love, a specific garnish? And actually, it's a question maybe for all three of you. So let's start with LP. Perfect martini, desert island, Tanqueray 10 martini. And then we'll go to Nick
Yeah.
and Terry.
My perfect Tanqueray 10 martini, 1.5 ounce Tanqueray 10, 3/4 ounce dry vermouth, 3/4 ounce blanc vermouth, 2 orange bitters, and then lemon, peel its rest, and dropped in the glass. Yeah.
Awesome. Nick?
So this is one of my favorite things. I actually keep a bottle frozen in my freezer all the time. So it's 1.5 ounces of Tanqueray 10, and then I usually throw in about 1/2 ounce to 3/4 ounce of Manzanilla sherry. So to brighten up those softer botanical notes, and then about 3/4 ounce of Bouquet Americano with the orange bitters as well, and it's to die for.
Amazing. And Terry, over to you.
Don't ask me what else went all in it, but you asked the question. Thinking back to Glasgow, when Ego Peroni, the bartender from London, he made us a martini. It was absolutely fantastic. So don't ask me what was in it, Lauren, please.
It was just deliciousness in a cold glass.
Yes.
Well,
mine's a twist of I love a zesty one. Rather, I'm more a twist rather than an olive.
Twist over an olive. Yeah. I'm the same. I like a 2 parts gin to 1 part vermouth. And actually, it's interesting. We were doing a session last week with Adam McGurk, who is our Belsazar Vermouth ambassador in Great Britain, and we were chatting a lot about martinis. And Belsazar, just like a whisper, because it's quite a floral dry vermouth, but even with like a really nice dry vermouth, or even like a splash of like even Fino sherry with 2 parts Tanqueray 10 gin with orange bitters and a twist. So happy. Yeah. and I know that I know that Nick and Lauren have been requested to submit their ratios, so not to worry, we will feature that somewhere in the content for everyone to review afterwards on the worldclass.usbg.com site. And let's see, we've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to come back to Lauren again. And I would love it if you could, it's quick fire, your top 3 gin drinks of all time, classic.
Tom Collins by far. Martini. And then, I don't know. I'm so stuck. Probably
I know
just
you
a
love a
classic
good French
sour.
75.
Yeah, French 75. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Nick?
Mine's similar, actually. I'm going to go French 75. I'm going to go gimlet, and then either martini or, goodness. Yeah, I'm going to go martini.
Nice. And you know what? I don't know what, we don't talk about the Ramos Gin Fizz enough, I feel, you know?
You really don't.
No, and some might argue that maybe a Ramos Gin Fizz could be better suited to London Dry, but if you haven't had one with Tanqueray 10, you are missing out. It's so floral and light and just such a lovely drink with Tanqueray 10. Terry, we'll have to get you situated into a Ramos Gin Fizz immediately.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and actually, if you can connect time and place to some of these things, you know, I know that we're in these complicated times right now with bars. They're just reopening, but if we ever get a chance to all be together, maybe at the Sazerac bar having a Ramos Gin Fizz together, or even a French 75 somewhere. Even, I've asked Jack Soddy, because he's on this call, to send me his specs on his gimlet right away, because if it has blown Terry away, then I want to get those specs as well, and make sure that we're all looking at different variations for the gimlet. And you know what? We've had some really great interaction from our audience attending as well, and I think we're about to wrap it up. So unless there's maybe a final thought from any of the 3 of you that you wish to share on the subject, I know, great cocktails, we're using what we've got at home. We're a bit limited on our ingredients, but I firmly believe that we're only limited by our imagination and occasionally bad glassware, because I don't have any good glassware. I just moved. But any final thoughts from any of the 3 of you?
I'm sorry, Terry, go ahead.
Just a wee final thought for myself, Lauren, was just that another, just it's really kind of finished out on another proud moment here with Tanqueray, is that working a kind of big site here where we produce Tanqueray, and just so all the bartenders that know it, we're very much kind of environmental kind of drive, and Tanqueray is actually produced with green steam. So all the byproducts from our whisky part of the plant and our gin side is then turned into energy for power and also steam as well. So when we are actually producing Tanqueray in this distillery, it's all with green steam, and all the water we use as well is from bores. So very, very focused on the green credentials for this brand, and I think that's really important. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, there's definitely a transparency with Tanqueray that I think we can all really appreciate, and it's wonderful to highlight that again. So thanks, Terry. And Nick or Lauren, any final thoughts from either of you?
I was going to say the same thing you did, Lauren. It's really only limited by your imagination. Tanqueray makes for an excellent canvas to do virtually anything with, whether it's a classic cocktail or not, or something new and creative and unique. It's a beautiful slate to build some amazing drinks with, and I know we've all done some really wild and crazy things with it over the years, and it's a lot of fun. And I just want to say thank you to Terry and the team at Tanqueray for allowing us to use such a beautiful product.
Thank you to the bartenders. We're in this together. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren?
Just want to say thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this session. A massive thank you to Lauren, to Nick, and Terry for sharing their time and expertise and love with us today on Tanqueray, and also just great cocktails and great messages of community. Again, all the best to all three of you.
Thank you.
Have an amazing rest of the day, and take care of yourselves and each other, and phone a friend, check in, send some hugs out there.
Thank
and a
you.
Ramos infant.
Okay. Right, bye, Lauren. Bye, Nick. Bye, Lauren.
Bye, guys.